Kindly post your questions, queries in the chat box throughout the webinar so the questions can be taken at the end. We are fortunate enough to have a versatile, highly learned person of global exposure as a resource person for today's webinar, Dr. Roshan Lal Raina, Honorable Vice Chancellor, J.K. Lakshmipati University. Having said this, now I would request Dr. Hatim Kayyumi to introduce us our today's guest.
Qayyum sir.
Hello.
हाँ
Hello. Good morning, everybody. Hello.
येतोय सर आवाज येतोय तुमचा.
Good morning, one and all. I take this privilege and honor to welcome our esteemed speaker for the day, Dr. Roshan Lal Raina. Dr. Raina is a Vice Chancellor at the J.K. Lakshmipati University. Before taking over the charge of Vice Chancellor, Raina sir was Professor in Communication and Dean Planning and Development, IIM Lucknow, where sir used to teach variety of courses in communication for management. Raina sir had over 34 years of managerial experience and nearly 21 years of postgraduate teaching experience. As a Fulbright scholar, sir went to the School of Information Studies, Syracuse University, New York, USA, and successfully audited the advanced courses in automation and networking. Research contributions of Raina sir include 22 best-selling books edited and authored, and 230 research papers published in reviewed journals, conferences, and seminar proceedings. As a highly respected trainer in corporate, academia, and in government circles, Raina sir has been actively involved in conducting more than 200 advanced, innovative, and need-based management development programs, faculty development programs, and workshops. Concurrently, Raina sir has been involved in more than 50 consulting and research assignments, which are awarded by reputed national and international agencies. Some of these include JSI, Deliver, USA, IDRC Canada, John Hopkins University, Center for Communication Program, UP State Electricity Board, Water State and Sanitization Mission, UP State Road Transportation Corporation, MHRD Government of India, DRDO Government of India. As a regular speaker at national and international level, academic and industry, seminar and conferences, summits, conclave, Raina sir's research on bringing in and building on the element of quality in higher education and research initiation has drawn appreciation from all concerned. As a scholar and as an institutional builder of repute, Raina sir, for his multifaceted contribution, holds a unique distinction of having received several top professional scholarships, awards, honors, and recognitions. Some of them I list hereby. He has received Fulbright Award from the British Council Fellowship, the SIS Fellowship, Top Ranker Excellence Award for Academic Leadership 2014, Indian Science Congress Association Honor in 2014, AGBA Distinguished Life Achievement Award 2015, felicitation by GB Pant University of Agriculture and Technology, Uttarakhand in 2017, Exemplary Academic Leadership Award 2017, Visionary Leader of India Award 2017, Distinguished Service Award 2018 by IICA, SCC Online and SLS Lifetime Achievement Award 2018 by MPLA, and Rajasthan Chamber of Commerce and Industry Award for meritorious contribution towards industrial development of the state, year 2020. All of us are very much eager to hear from Raina sir. Hence, without wasting any time, I hand over the charge to Raina sir. Sir, please continue.
Namaskar to each and everyone attending this meeting in these trying and tough times. Before I begin, I would deem it an honor and a privilege to extend my sincere thanks to IMS Learning Resource Center, and IQAC of IMS, and in particular, my sincere thanks to Dr. Swati for having reached out to me and convinced me that we need to have a discussion on this topic at our school. When I asked her, why did you and how did you reach out to me? What prompted you to pick me up? There are so many who are experienced experts in this subject. So all that she told me was very, very impressive, and I couldn't say no to her when she said, sir, I heard you in some webinar, and it is there where I thought if we could have the opportunity of inviting you over to our school, and this topic has come immediately after that thought of mine, and I put it across my people, my management, and that's how this request was there, and I didn't say no even in a second. Thank you so very much associated with getting this show on, so that all of us, I see 100 of us already there in this meeting, stay benefited as to what is this National Education Policy 2020 document all about, and what is there in it for us as faculty, as teachers, and also some of us as service providers. When we say service providers, I mean to say LRC and others engaged and involved in this discussion, right? So once again, I hope with whatever expectations Swati has of me and of this session, we will live up to those expectations, right? Having said what I said, I also feel it my duty to wish and pray each and every one of us attending this meeting is staying safe and staying well. We know saying so is difficult proposition, but all of us are there, which speaks volumes that we are adhering to the various norms and guidelines which are being stipulated from time to time by various government agencies and regulatory bodies. So that is only reassuring. It will not continue far beyond a time frame. All of us are looking forward to receiving a vaccine, and so that this ailment is taken care of, this infection is taken care of. But till that happens, I can only request all of us, including me, to stay safe by exercising every possible precaution, caution, which is being prescribed, which we have to adhere to, because to me, there isn't any other solution as of now other than staying safe, staying well by observing and adhering to those social distancing norms and other health and hygiene issues, right? Well, national education policy, the idea came about this document about 5 years back, right? So we are in 2020, 2015, around January and February or so, the nation thought that enough has happened after the last document was released on the education, national education policy. I think it was 1986, if I'm not mistaken. So it has lived its time, and let us look at education differently. So the constitution of a committee was there for the last 4 or 5 years. And the people who are associated with this committee, right, are a galaxy of people who have been in one context or the other involved in education at all levels, whether it is planning, policy making, execution, delivery, so on and so forth. They are the kinds of people. And the committee was headed by none other than our own famous space scientist, right? Dr. Kasturi Rangan. So they took about, almost 4 to 5 years to work on this document, right? It's a quite good time frame. And when you look at the way the draft was circulated, the draft, I'm sure, NEP 2020, NEP 2019, the draft was circulated and was put open, made available to each and every one to look at it and suggest what could be done. And this is first time a document of its kind all over the globe talking about education in totality, and received about 250,000 suggestions from all across the country and some from overseas also. And there were equal number, if not more, consultative meetings that were organized on this document. Over 1,000 people at the helm of affairs, vice chancellors, directors, heads of academic institutions, poured in their views and suggestions. And similarly, inputs were also obtained from close to 40,000 colleges. Now look at the way the document has been, fine-tuned, fine-shaped. With these much kind of involvements, I'm sure based on this, which has been done in a very, very systematic and democratic manner, we ought to respect the document, which has ultimately come to us on 29th of last month, when the government of India approved this National Education Policy 2020. Why did I say so? So that you have a feel and flavor of how has this document come into its present shape. And to me, as a teacher, as an academic, this appears to be a document which is really very well researched, right? I mean it, very well researched. And I also say it is very well documented. An inspiring document. A document which is living to the aspirations of the people of this great country, which is aiming at improving the education ecosystem of this country so that education system of this country is respected all the world over. It is held as one of the most credible education systems of the world. We know where are we today. If you look at the top 100 ranked institutions from the globe, we know where are we. But this is the document, if it is understood in letter and spirit, if it is implemented in letter and spirit, I'm sure when the next set of rankings after some years come about, we will have a place in top 50, if not less than that. So I am very optimistic. I am very positive about this document. To me, it's a visionary document. To me, it is, as I said, inspirational document. Very well researched, very well documented. I have had the good fortune of meeting on a couple of occasions, not after the policy was approved, but when it was in the draft stage. The chairperson of this committee, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, who fortunately happens to be the JK Lakshpat University, where I work, its first laureate awardee. So we have had that link and relation. And he came to Jaipur last year, when the draft was under circulation. And we had invited him, Central University of Rajasthan had invited him to talk to us about the education policy. And we got to know from him firsthand as to what was the approach, what was the way forward, what were their key considerations, and so on and so forth. So it was there. Some of the things that he talked about made a lot more sense to a person like me. And trust you me, I met him last year about this policy. Right from there, because I found certain things that he was talking about it were echoing in letter and spirit with our thought process at our university, and we tried to do that. I'll share that a little later with you. But I'm all saying this preamble to tell you that give it the treatment that it deserves. And we, the academics, have to be, understanding that way. Right after 29th of last month, when this document, when this policy was announced, right, which was announced on 29th of July, after that, you must have seen there have been a number of interactions, webinars by the government, by the institutions, by the universities, by the colleges, by various chambers. I have had the good fortune of attending almost about 20-25 such meets. And I've also been fortunate to deliver 4 or 5 such interactive webinars during these last days, 13, so about 15-16 days. That has been what has been happening about this policy. And I feel that's a very good thing, because the more people are clear about it, the more people are aware about this document, then only people who are at the helm of affairs, who are the real stakeholders, will try to start thinking as to what can be done by them as individuals, what can be done by them as institutions, so that this policy sees the light of day in terms of its implementation, right? So this is what is my overview about this policy. I'm very, very positive about it. I mean, it's going to give the shape to the education landscape of this country. It will definitely, for sure, help our country to revive its lost glory. India ruled the roost at some point in time. Why? Because of the power of knowledge and wisdom it gave to the world. So in between, there have been some hiccups, some disturbances, or I don't know how to put it. We have lost that glory because we knew India ruled the roost as a knowledge power sometime hundreds and thousands of years back. I'm talking about, talking about Vedas, Puranas, our Upanishads, the way this country gave those kinds of documents to the world, telling how was our level in education at that point in time, and what is the fate today. I'm sure if we give this document the treatment, if we give this policy the treatment that it merits, I think will again be a power or a superpower in the century that we are part of today. Can the host allow me to share a small presentation so that we stay focused as to what I want to discuss with you? Otherwise, I can go on endlessly, right? So I'll just share with you a small, short presentation over which I will tell you what I'm going to talk about, because this talks about all areas, right? So let me see if we can stay focused, because people in this meeting are generally concerned about knowing what is there as far as this policy is concerned, insofar as higher education is concerned. So let the host permit me to share my screen. Then I can run you through a small presentation of about 10-12 slides, if that is okay with you.
Yes, sir. कर सकते हैं सर आप शेयर हाँ
Are you able to see this slide?
yes sir
Okay.
uh,
Well, once again, thanks to the IMS and the entire team at IMS for giving this opportunity, right? So, as said, my name is Roshan and I'm at Jaipur. So, we will talk about these key areas as to what is the vision behind this document. What is
sorry.
the vision
Hello.
of this policy? What are the various
Hello.
principles on which this policy has been worked upon? What does it talk about? Briefly about school education, but predominantly about higher education. Then
Hello.
what is the role and relevance of technology in education? What do they talk about vocational education? There's a very good shift on our understanding of vocational education, the way it has been, and the way this document talks about vocational education getting integrated into higher education, or professional education getting integrated into higher education. What does it talk about research, right? So what does it talk about online and digital education? And what are the various key thrust areas, right? So this is broadly what I would touch upon in this policy. There is much more than that, and I'll be open to any kind of observation on anything, because I've gone through this document and have been a part of senior level discussions on this document. I can only share with you what the discussion points are and what are the indicators that are being suggested by those who have approved this kind of a document, right?
Hello.
When we talk about the vision that this...
हेलो सर डिस्टर्ब कर रहा हूँ फुल स्क्रीन नहीं हुआ है सर अभी स्लाइड शो नहीं हुआ है
आप ये स्लाइड नहीं
देख पा रहे हैं सर सिर्फ आप वो ये कर दीजिए स्लाइड शो हाँ यस ओके सर ओके
Is that clear now?
यस सर थैंक यू सर
Was this content page clear? I'm just saying I'll
Yes.
be touching upon these 8-9 fundamentals of this document, which is vision. What are the various principles? What does this document talk about school education? There is a drastic change insofar as our approach to school education is concerned. And certainly this webinar is on higher education. I'll talk about integration of vocational and professional education into higher education, and then technology in education, digital and online education, and what does it talk about research, and what is it looking at the way forward. It is here that I was told that the slide was not in full display. So as far as vision is concerned, this policy talks about building an education ecosystem of this country that contributes to an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all. High quality education to all means affordable education, reaching out to the last person, right? Inclusive education, all of that. And my take from this is, it is talking about education should contribute to the knowledge cycle. And what is that knowledge cycle? Knowledge cycle consists basically of 3 critical components. And that is where it says Indian education ecosystem must contribute its bit qualitatively on knowledge cycle, so that this knowledge cycle keeps on happening in a seamless fashion. What are those key components of this knowledge cycle? It says the components are knowledge generation, which is research. So it talks about research. The second component is knowledge dissemination, which is teaching. It talks a whole lot about the teaching, how it should be, how it has to be, and how can it be the way it is envisaged to be. And the third is the knowledge application. So this education policy document encompasses knowledge cycle in all its three critical components of knowledge generation, which is research, knowledge dissemination, which is teaching, and knowledge application, which is use. The knowledge is created, knowledge is delivered, but it is to be made use of by the industry, by the government, by the think tank, by all who need inputs from knowledge. So what is that we need to do to make sure this knowledge cycle consisting of these three components keeps on happening in a seamless fashion? It does say that, but it also talks about how does this Indian education system produce complete, integrated, holistic citizens for this nation, not only for this nation, but for the globe. Yes, the first component will equip them with basic nuts and bolts of the area they are interested in. But just that will not help them to flourish in their lives ahead of them. So what is that they need to know about India and Indian ecosystem, Indian economic system, Indian environment, Indian social system, Indian fabric, Indian culture, Indian values. And on top of it, one thing which caught my attention, it does talk about sensitizing our people on constitution of this great country. Many things, come from there. And if we respect that, if we are aware of that, many other things like sustainability, many other things, is what this education policy talks about. Should our citizens, should our youth be exposed to those kinds of things? Whereas it talks about our responsibilities, it does also expect us to be aware of what our rights are. Rights in the sense, how do we stay aware about various issues that confront us? What do we know? What we are expected to do, and what is our along with responsibility, what is our right? So if we say we need a place to live, so that we need to be aware of it. Live with dignity, live with grace, live with education, live with food, live with all those kinds of things. So it creates that kind of an awareness among us completely. So if we know these are our rights, I'm sure we'll respect the rights of others also, because they are not our rights only, they are the rights of fellow citizens. So it does do justice to holistic development of the youth, so that they are better off as complete integrated human beings going forward. Not only they are experts in a particular domain, could be engineering, could be science, could be technology, could be economics, could be history. Yes, they have to be experts in those areas, they have to be knowledgeable about those, but they have to be also aware about very many other areas which this document talks about, and has given adequate thrust and impetus to plus domain areas. And that's what I like better, because otherwise, if we have produced engineers or managers, even from best of the best institutions like IITs, IIMs, or even IIMS, and when they are talked about, some fundamental things about values, attitude, constitution, sustainability, caring for others, all of that kind of things, they don't answer those kinds of questions well. So it is a learning environment which gives them those kinds of inputs so that they are better off. That is what is the vision. In nutshell, this is what is practiced where the education system has flourished. So that is why if you look at people coming from those parts of the world, they are definitely experts in their own chosen fields, but they have understanding of the entire ecosystem of the country. An entire ecosystem, I mean all areas included. right? So they are aware, not just this domain. So what are the key things that have attracted my attention are as follows. To me, this is the document which talks about student centricity. I will explain that a little later. This is first time the document is very loud and clear that give the student the opportunity to pursue his passion. Whatever he is passionate about, the education ecosystem of your country, of your college, of your university, of your institution should be such that he gets an opportunity to pursue his dream. Not that when I educated, my papa wanted me to be somebody, I wanted to be somebody, relations wanted me to be somebody, the friend circle wanted to be me somebody. I didn't know what I really wanted to be. And I was by and large influenced by what others had to say that I should be pursuing. But this is to my mind talking about, student centricity. Student is the focus. As we say, Industry 4.0 talks about the customer. Here, Education 4.0 talks about the student, talks about the youth of this country. If we do that, and the way that they have suggested is resorting to the measures like flexibility, give the choice to the student and build in your mechanism the element of flexibility. Don't have those rigid boundaries that you have come to a university for pursuing a branch of engineering, let us say in mechanical, and you are tied to that branch all your life. Maybe you discover at some point in time during your academic journey that is not your cup of tea. You would like to go into some other area. So allow those kinds of flexibility. Don't have those hard boundaries. No, you cannot. This is what it is, then that is the final thing. No. It talks about educational institutions to bring in the concept of multidisciplinarity, because when we are giving them flexibility, when we are respecting that there shouldn't be any hard boundaries, so in an institution, apart from what the domains that they are in, they should bring in the concept of multidisciplinarity, which is you are into management. Yes, you teach management, you teach marketing, you teach finance, you teach operations, you teach supply chain, you teach HR, you teach logistics. All that is fine, but make sure they get to know something from other disciplines. They have talked very heavily about liberal studies because those are the areas which give them perspectives to develop. Maybe somebody is keen to get into some other area which is not hardcore management, but maybe as for instance, we have designed and delivered a course which is called as C learning. Now, giving a course on C learning to MBA students is unheard of. But I said I had a chance to interact with him, Dr. Kasturi Rangan, last year. So I was toying with this idea, sir. What our students at times feel, they lack that element of compassion. They lack that element of attitude. They lack that element of ethics. They lack that element of trust. They lack that. Those are the kinds of things that we thought we are preparing a course which is called as C learning, and the full form is SEE, social, ethical, and emotional learning. And there we talk about three elements: compassion, mindfulness, and ethics. I will not have time to elaborate on that, but trust you me, those are the kinds of things you have to build into your institution so that your students get those inputs. How do you do that is all a matter of nuts and bolts. But in principle, this is what is talked about: flexibility, okay, multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinariness. Now, other thing, they are talking much about creativity and critical thinking. Since the ecosystem is innovation driven all along, so innovations come if the students are inquisitive. They have that urge to get as many answers to as many questions as possible. So for instance, we have a center of communication and critical thinking, where the center of communication and critical thinking we established about 2 years back. It is evolving, it has not evolved, but for the last 2 years, it has come up with 6 courses, which each and every student at our university has to go through. And the courses are, equipping the youth with the competencies, with the skill sets, which are like communication, critical thinking, problem solving, decision making, working in teams, leadership, so on and so forth. It is not that these courses are taught only MBA students. These courses are also taught to engineering students. These courses are also taught to design students. These are the kinds of courses which have to be given to each and every student, because the more you are able to produce an inquisitive mind, the innovation chances of coming up big way are there. That is why the policy talks about, preparing students to ask you more and more questions, which was not so earlier. We would give them all the kinds of questions as well as answers. The more thrust is on making students inquisitive, making students asking questions, and then let them ask questions. If they ask a genuine question, I'm sure they will also find a genuine answer. So that is what it is being talked about. It's talking about these life skills, which I said. In addition to the domain, please give, educate, trust, and impetus through education, so that the students are not, we are not preparing them for today or tomorrow, we are preparing them for their careers ahead. So expose them to these soft skills, which are life skills, as I said, communication, critical thinking, but also equip them with what are the upcoming new age technologies, right? People today talk about AI, machine learning, IoT, so on and so forth as new technologies. There are new technologies today. So make sure each and every student is well versed what are these new age or trendy romantic technologies. And these technologies are new age technologies today. Maybe after 3-4 years or 2 years, there will be some other set of other technologies coming up. So it tells the education systems, please make sure that the students are always one up in terms of their knowledge and awareness about new age technologies. So the other points are respect for diversity and respect for local context, which I said, it does talk about sensitizing Indian students, youth of India, with our value system, with our rich, great cultural heritage, with our rich age-old contribution to the world of knowledge. It talks about giving them insights from time-tested scriptures, right? So it does talk about local context. Let them understand India. Let them, if I'm in Jaipur, let them understand Jaipur. Let them understand Rajasthan. Let them understand India. So the problem is, when others come to us from other parts of the world, they know a little bit about, for sure, about their country. But at times it is also, I have observed it being a teacher at IIM Lucknow, because we used to have exchange relations with about 30-35 best of the best institutions. When those students would come from those places, trust you me, they had adequate knowledge about their country, not only insofar as the domain they were concerned, but other areas. You would talk to them about education of that country, you would talk to them about politics of that country, you would talk to them about science of that country, technology of that country, religion of that country, personal life of that country, social life. They would be much better off to know all of that. And they would be also equally better off in comparison to our own students about India. So if that is what is with those people, why don't we make sure our students are also well off in terms of understanding India? And I'm fond of this kind of a course, because in one of my assignments at Lal Bahadur Shastri Institute of Management, where I was director for 3-4 years, I made it a point that each and every MBA student must go through a 3-credit course on knowing India in terms of politics, knowing in terms of science, technology, research, sports, history, politics, all of that. So we made it a 3-credit course so that each and every student knows, what's there in the Constitution. Why was it made? Who were the architects? What was the background? So all I'm trying to say is, this is what it talks about. The other thing that it talks about very nicely is about, and using the phrase which has been in the market since it was out on 29th July, the regulatory framework is light but tight. So what does it mean, light and tight? Everybody talks about it. I have understood it. There is regulation bit is a little light one because they have tried to put all together. Time will only tell us how they are going to operationalize that. But in thought process, all those kinds of higher education regulatory mechanisms have been consolidated, and we are looking at Higher Education Council of India. It talks about light regulatory system, but more on governance, so that quality which we are being talked about, which the nation is expecting from this policy, if it is implemented in letter and spirit, is taken care of. So it talks about governance system so that quality is not compromised. It has given way to rote learning, and I'm quite convinced this is the way forward. So learning by doing is what the document talks about. Experiential or project-based learning is what the document is talking about. If you learn a concept, give an opportunity to the student to understand what that concept is and what its real application to the situation is. So doing this kind of a thing is certainly a plus point. So we have to look at how do we recraft our course curriculum, so that this project-based learning or experiential learning or learning to learn environment is built up. We have tried to do it in our engineering programs for the last 2-3 years, because we found globally there was one of the institutions known world over insofar as project-based learning is concerned. It's a small little institution in US. People talk about it as All-in College of Engineering, and it is known the world over on project-based learning. They are not that much on research, but they are into this teaching, and the pedagogy is project-based learning. So we collaborated with them, and we got our faculty trained by those people. We got their faculty mentoring our faculty here and teaching and training our students and faculty. So everybody talks about project-based learning, but here it is different. Each and every concept you understand, you learn, you have there on the table. These classes kind of a thing in project-based learning for our engineering students at our university are not done in typical classroom where you have PowerPoint. So these are done in studios. So, and that is where, and this is not done by one teacher. You'll be pleasantly surprised to know that our first year courses are courses, with credits of 10, 12, and which is taught by a combination of teachers, 6, 7, 8 teachers have devised and designed and developed and are delivering a course, which is basically a project-based learning approach we are trying to follow. So I talked about, making people aware about various fundamental documents of this country, fundamental procedures of this country, fundamental systems of this country, and many other fundamental documents. So these are some guiding principles which are there. I won't talk much about this because that is not what you are interested in, but there is a drastic major change. 10 plus 2 is being replaced by this 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 system, right? So first 3 years, I'm sure you would have gone through it. Now, the highest priority of the education system will be to achieve universal foundational literacy and numeracy in primary school by 2025. They have a huge goal. I'll come to that a little later. When they say the dropouts in higher education, the goal is to reduce it from present 26% or so, which was in 2018, to 50% in 2035, which is a very huge goal. But the way they are designing, they are talking about, they are pleading for this education ecosystem, I'm very optimistic that we will cover that ground. There should not be much of a problem. Right? 3 language formula, no hard separation, home language. So I'll skip. Yeah. So as I said, the document talking about higher education system is talking about developing education institutions into large multidisciplinary universities. And I talked to you about that very clearly, very loudly. And I did justify why do we need to have these multidisciplinary approach in our systems, right? So they are categorizing institutions of higher education into three categories, right? I may have my observation or two on this, but this is what the policy document talks about. Research universities, where there is equal focus on research and teaching. Teaching universities, where primary focus is on teaching, right? And good amount of focus on research. There are autonomous degree granting colleges, which are exclusively they intend to have them at the focus being at teaching, right? So all these kinds of educational institutions, right, are to make sure that their people, that's what this, talking about project-based learning, experiential learning, or integrating vocational education into higher education, or integrating vocational and professional education. They are talking about so that the students, which come out of these educational institutions are complete, are integrated. They know the skill sets, not only in terms of theories, concepts, models, frameworks, but they know the relevance and application of those kinds of tools, principles, concepts, theories, because they have undergone reasonable amount of training through internships or practice schools or summer internships, all of that. So that is what is being heavily talked about. So as I said, integration of liberal education, we talked about flexible curricular structures in undergraduate and master's programs, choice-based credit system that was there. UGC had been talking about, and most of us were following that. But there is lot more scope of increasing that, number one, and through that bringing in a lot more flexibility, right? So this exit option, is something which we have to look at. It's all a student-centric approach. It is all the person may not be able to do it in one go. Let him earn some credits, because there's a concept of credit bank in this scheme of things. Let him earn some credits through first semester, may not be able to, do that. Let those credits be accumulated. When he has time, he can come back, right? So MPhil program for the first time has been kind of done away with, right? They are saying a person who has done a 4-year master's, and if there is a large component of research in his 4th year, why should we do, an MPhil? So that is what is being talked about in it. High quality institutions in disadvantaged geographies are priority. Wherever we don't have these institutions, they are talking about setting up a multidisciplinary education, quality education institution in almost all the areas where possible. So the other. Academic, financial, and emotional support will be available for all students in higher education institutions. Open and distance learning will be expanded. Credit-based recognition of MOOCs. I'm not sure how many of you are doing it. This is what is getting more and more importance with COVID now in place. We have tied up with various organizations which fortunately gave us huge amount of online courses available free of cost. And our students have, and our teachers have completed at least thousands of such courses during the time. And they are the courses from the best of the best. If you've heard of Coursera, you know the kinds of courses that are available from, and there are other Indian platforms, Indian massive open online courses platforms available. So people are using them. So this is what is being recognized. Internationalization of education will be facilitated. This is what is being talked about. I was a part of certain discussions where this was taken as some kind of threat to Indian education system. I don't see that. So I see it is also a pointer towards improving quality. It's also pointed towards increasing competitiveness. If the government of India is allowing top 100 higher education institutions to come and operate in India, I'm sure it will bring in lots and lots of things which will encourage, prompt, and expedite bringing in and building on the element of quality in our higher education institution systems, rather than people were talking in different terms. I won't use that, but I'm very positive this will improve quality in all the 3 critical components of higher education system. Those 3 critical components are input, as to what kind of students you get to the system, what kind of faculty you get into the system, what kind of course curriculum you devise, design, develop for your system, and what is your delivery, and what is your assessment and evaluation. So if you get to know fundamentals from those best of the best, I'm sure you will try to develop yourself. And by virtue of this internalization or globalization of education, the people, the institutions which have earned that reputation, which have earned that position, can also go and spread, reach out to the globe uh, for imparting quality education. So to me, globalizing this education that way is resulting in increasing the healthy competitive environment, which will again go towards building the quality education ecosystem in the country. So it does talk about faculty. It's very conscious that the faculty must be groomed, nurtured, right, and trained properly as and when the situation, whatever it demands and merits. So it should give educate thrust and importance on developing faculty, on grooming faculty, on training faculty. It has good amount of thrust on that, because it is not only just the core curriculum which has to be contemporary. It is the people who will deliver it, right? I have my own views on that. I can answer those questions if you have on that area. But the document talks about doing everything possible to nurture, groom, build, develop, attract, retain quality faculty. Whatever it takes an educational institution to do that must be done there. So we are clear. What does it talk about vocational education? Making a part of integrating professional education into higher education. So it does understand and make us clear about these professional education, higher education part. Standalone technical universities, right? Health science universities, legal agriculture universities, shame to become multidisciplinary institutions offering holistic and multidisciplinary education. I hope you understand that. Since it's a management school, I must tell you, even IIMs, which have been operating as just management schools, they will have to look beyond. They will have to bring in subjects other than hardcore areas of management. They may have to bring in, areas which are under liberal studies. Who knows? They may design and develop and put in place courses in history, philosophy, right, or the courses that I talked to you about. So those are the kinds of things that they want, that these schools should not be just those watertight compartments on a particular subject. They must give perspective to the students on various other areas, which, I'm sure you would have heard that, they refer to those 64 kalas, who's the saint who had given those? I'm forgetting his name. They talked about 64 kalas. Right now they are 512. So when they have researched that, they saw the integration of all those kinds of kalas into making a person a complete, integrated, and holistic one. So it is not that you teach a guy fundamentals in management, of course, minus for all functional areas. So the attempt is to give him exposure to other areas. Research, as I said, is being talked about a great way. In fact, they are talking about a research fund of the order of 1% of the GDP to promote research. National Research Foundation is being talked about by this, which is aimed at building research capacity, because educational institution in the higher space would only be respected and accepted globally if it has contributed to those three components of knowledge cycle, research being the first. So to promote the concept and culture of research, that understanding of the policy, to give it the educate thrust and impetus is what has been talked about in a big way. And I'm sure if they are talking about allocating 1% of GDP to that, it will give it the thrust. The questions were raised in some of the discussions, said those research funds are available, but they are only given to the government organizations. We don't figure out. But then they have understood it. They have decided that it will be purely on the basis of merit of the research proposal, wherever it comes from. If there is an element of innovation, It may be coming from not that high quality, high first tier, institute of excellence. But if there is some innovation, if there is some merit in the proposal, it can be from any other. So we respect what they have said. It should promote the concept of research. Online, because we have seen COVID has taught us a lot. So it is talking about involving technology in a big way. And it says, technology is one resource which can help us to connect the people from one end of the country to the other. So they are looking at technology as a major driver to reach out to the people which otherwise were deprived of a good education, quality education. So they are talking about improvising, building the digital infrastructure so that all education is able to be taken care of by online mode if the situation so permits. Even virtual labs, even assessments, evaluations, examinations have to be foolproof, proctored kind of things in technology. So what I'm trying to say is through this trust on technology, they are looking at building this technology infrastructure so that we are able to reach out to the people which were otherwise, getting deprived of the education. See, this is what I told you. The policy identifies, and here I will stop. I don't know how much time. They talk about increasing GER, gross enrollment ratio, which I talked to you about, 26.3%, which was in 2018, to 50% by 2035. Now, one of the pointers, and also the second bullet point, 3.5 crore seats will be added to higher education institutions. It is there, they are again talk about quality will be the differentiator. Now, to answer these 2 points together, my take is, if we look at where are the dropouts and how can they achieve this GR from 26% to 50% in less than 15 years now. My take is, I looked at the research, I looked at the surveys. A year back, a survey was conducted which said, in grade 6 to 8, we have enrollments of the order of 90.8%, 90.9%. To be precise, 90.9%, which is 91%. In which grades? Grade 6 to 8. This percentage goes down when it comes to grade 9 and 10. And where does it go? It goes from 91% to 80%. 80% when it comes to grade 9 to 10. This grade drops significantly when it goes to 11, 12 grade. It is 56%. From 80% to 56% when it comes to 11, 12, grade 11, 12. And from this, when they go to higher education, this 56% goes down to 26%. So where is this drift taking place? Where are these, enrollments, fizzling out? It is when they are out from, schools, colleges up to 12, and they go to pursue higher, they go away. So my submission is, the way the document, the policy document has been approved, drafted, approved, is to catch this population of about what? 56 to 26, right? About 30% of the people who want to go for higher education but are lost somewhere. Why? Because they look at what is the education available. Either they are not interested, or the educational situations, the environments don't permit them. Now, since the education policy 2020 is all towards the student, I'm sure they will look at, and more on top of it, the flexibility, the way it is built on, the interdisciplinary, the way it is built in, or the vocational professional education becoming mainstream higher education. So all of that is quite conducive to make sure that this percentage is achievable, right? So other areas, this broad base, these are all linked towards that. Liberal education, understanding India, all of that, technology thrust, quality research, globalization, light and tight regulatory system, which I talked about, are all pointers to, make sure that this policy is understood, policy is implemented. People are talking about this last, issue, the debates that have been part of everywhere, everyone at the helm of affairs as a director or a vice chancellor or a faculty or a policy maker or a think tank or government or bureau, they were all positive about the National Education Policy 2020. But everybody was saying, let us wait and watch and see how does its implementation go. While I don't disagree with them majorly, but I say the policy documents are guiding principles, are giving you an overall vision, overall perspective, overall way forward. To make it happen, the nuts and bolts have to start from the lower levels. It is at the schools, it is at the colleges, it is at the universities, where the people have to think through as to what can we do. A teacher has to apply this policy to himself or herself and answer this question for him or her as to what is in it for me. If I'm teaching this course, how do I make the most of this course from the student point of view? I know this subject very well. I'm a teacher in communication and I've been teaching 20 courses in communication. And if you ask me to teach a course, I can teach endlessly. But is that what is needed? Is that what is needed? Is the policy talking about? You may know oceans of information on a particular subject. Is that what is needed in totality, in entirety by the student? So this is what it is talking about. As far as implementation is concerned, my submission to all the people attending, who I think are the faculty, look at this policy, read it again and again. See what is there in it for you so that you can start looking at it from right now. Yes, there are certain areas which are not directly connected to you as a faculty, not directly connected to you as head of your institution, not directly connected to you as the vice chancellor. Let those issues be taken care of, whether education is state list or central list or concurrently. This part is by state, this part is by center, this part is by concurrent consent. So all of those things, I leave it to that. I also leave it to whether it will be 3.4 to 6. Going budget, they are talking about 6% of GDP. Now, the problems are there plenty. I don't see it. I don't deny that. But we have to accept this policy as something which has come to us through hard research-based effort of the people who have been involved in the education affairs of this country for years together. So if they have applied their mind, if they have solicited so much of support, consultation, cooperation, guidance, suggestion from so many of us, there has to be something in it. So let us look at it from that perspective and put our hands together and give it the push that it deserves. Yes, nothing perfect and nothing will ever be perfect. But let me tell you, the way this document has evolved, I don't see any other country working on such documents that way. That is why it is not of interest and concern for us here at IMS. It is not of interest and concern to all of us in India, but it has been of an increasing interest and concern to many people abroad who look at Indian education system going forward, because that is what is of interest and concern to them insofar as their education system is concerned. They know it pretty well, how much crop every year on year basis comes to us from India. So Indian education, if it improves on its quality in input, process, and output, there may be some signals to them. So I conclude by my remarks. This document is our student and youth centric. This document talks about bringing in and building on the element of quality in the input and the process and the output of our education system. This policy talks about giving the due credibility and visibility to our educational institutions so that they regain that lost glory on the one side, and also they are respected and accepted by the benchmark institutions of higher education and learning abroad. Thank you so very much for listening to me so far very patiently. I'll be happy to understand some of the questions and try my best to answer if I can.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for a very insightful and detailed informative session. Sir talked about the peculiarities of this document. Student centricity is the base, which is also the motto of Education 4.0. Flexibility in academics, internationalization, creative and critical thinking, multidisciplinary approach, and higher educational institutes to be converted as large multidisciplinary universities and so many things. Sir, thanks a lot for your valuable session, informative, as we can see in the chat box, which is full of appreciative message that the information is very good. There is one very beautiful quote by young educationist from Afghanistan, Malala Yousafzai. She says, one child, one teacher, one book, one pen can change the world. So now the policymakers has given us this beautiful educational policy. Now it is, as a stakeholders, it is in our hand how we can make the changes. Having said this, sir, there are few questions from the participants. Uh, I hope we can start with the question answers.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Dr. Samita Mahapatra is asking, how would the existing ecosystem adapt the new reality?
Very good question. And the answer for the question is equally good. The planners, the people who have crafted and drafted this policy, themselves are aware of our strengths and weaknesses insofar as implementing this policy is concerned. That is why they have given a time frame of 15 years. Taking a cue from there, I don't also expect it to happen overnight at our respective institutions. I would only urge each and every one of us to look at it as to what is in it for me as a faculty, what is in it for me as a group, what is in it for me as an institution, and see what best I can do today onwards. If I have to talk about flexibility, if I have to talk about interdisciplinariness, if we have to talk about apart from finance, marketing, and the supply chain, logistics, operations, economics, HR, what is that I need to look at and how do I do? For instance, if I am teaching them courses on marketing, how much of it is to be taught to them? Do I need to teach them 4 courses in marketing, or I can look at some space over there and add on to these elements? So I'm just suggesting it is not to happen overnight, but you have to wake up now, because in principle, if you agree with the various provisions of this policy, then it is us, the teachers, who have to understand how to start fixing these, how to start structuring our programs, how to involve people from industry. Because, I had tough time, let me tell you, as a teacher in communication, I'll be all the time fond of giving them 4 credit courses on communication, right? Or similarly, a teacher in marketing. But we have to understand what is needed by them to take off in marketing. If somebody is going to join a career in research and marketing, the environment will equip him with the nuts and bolts there. But let this course of an MBA give him the basic contours of what the world of marketing is all about. So that is where I'm saying you have to start. It will take time. It should not happen overnight. And that is what is not being advocated for. But the early you wake up, the early you understand, the early you start bringing in these kinds of changes incrementally, the better off you will be. Because I liked what Honorable Prime Minister said the other day. Don't expect a top-down approach on implementation of this policy. Expect it has to be implemented bottom-up. And when he referred to bottom-up, means each and every one of us, I'm also a teacher, have to understand.
Thank you, sir. The second question, sir, do you think that this new system will lead towards increased competitiveness of our educational system and the students?
Yes, I'm sure, because I think the more the educational systems are responsive to this, competitive environments, which are working on quality in the input, in the process, in the output, right? The better off you are. Darwin said survival of the fittest. The
Right.
better you are in terms of getting up your and understanding what is required and addressing those requirements, the better you are. It will create healthy competition, and it should. If the education system of our country has to be recognized as one of the best education systems of the world, then yes, we have to bring in those changes. We have to bring in those transformations. The transformation is the key, and if we accept it, if we embrace it, yes, it will bring in the
Bring the
value,
competition.
the environment of competition, and you should not should not be worried about that.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Very right, sir. There is one more specific question. Dr. Bhavsar is asking, since which year will degree courses of 4 years shall be implemented? Since which
See,
academic year?
See, no. It is not this year or that year. I am sure there will be thought through guidelines coming on that, from the system. So which year? All the document is now creating awareness. What is it? If you think, with the session that you are inducting next year, 21, 22, you think bringing in that, nobody will stop you from that. You have to
Okay.
understand, you have to treat the existing students the way they have been accepted, they understand. But within those systems, if you, for instance, can bring in some change, given this, do that. You cannot apply today's rule to the student you have admitted 3 years back. No. But there also, to whatever extent you can do what is needed by you to do that, give that treatment to that.
Okay. Mrs. Tehseen Sheikh is asking, again on the similar lines, that from which year,
Richa, I'm in a meeting. I'll call you after 10 minutes.
from which year the national education policy, which is this suggested, on the similar lines, the question is there, sir. From which year this policy would be implemented completely, or maybe step
To
by
me,
step?
Mudassar, are you
Yes,
Mudassar?
Yes, yes, yes.
To me, Mudassar, I would say the policy should be implemented with effect from yesterday.
Okay.
Right? But we know the ground realities with which we are, working.
Right.
The national education policy of 1986, did not take off even for 3-4 years. Did not even take off.
Right.
Because there were certain ambiguities, there were certain unclarities, there were certain other factors. But this document is a lot more proactive in its thought and approach. And there are certain things which can start right away. That is what I submit. My submission again to all such people is, if you are aligned with the thought process of this policy, do as much meetings as possible within your system and see what best you can do. Nobody will stop you from that. Nobody will object. No, we are not giving you any direction. How could you go ahead with the implementation? No. Be rest assured on that.
Okay, so thank you, sir. One more question. So according to your opinion, how long will it take for the policy to actually spring wings and take a flight as desired and envisioned by the policy makers?
Toto implementation, the people who crafted, who approved, have said a provision of 15 years. They've said itself, right?
Yes.
But in bits and pieces, which add up together to make this policy, it can start on the elements. Yesterday, as I said, it can start on certain fundamentals. The more you are towards it, you can start doing those kinds of tweakings, fine tunings, and adding on flexibility, grade accumulation, credit bank, and multidisciplinariness. You can start. The more you are okay with it, you have the resources to, you have the bandwidth to it, you can do it. But the policy as a whole will take time, and everybody is aware. But small little areas where you think you can make a contribution, as I said, who stops you from introducing a course on India information? Who stops? And anyway, that will be a welcome step. Who stops you from making a 3-credit course of marketing to 2 credit if you are convinced? Who stops? You have to be convinced in your first place. And I find, it was hard for me because I'm a teacher in management. I know only one subject. It was very hard for me to tell a person who is in finance that you may do these many credits in finance. No, sir, don't I teach them stock market? Don't I teach them volatility? Don't I teach them accounting? Don't I teach them fundamentals? Don't I teach them derivatives? Don't I teach them? I mean, it was hard for me to tell them, no, you cannot, because they are all essential. So ultimately, I said, yeah, we have 120 credits. Okay. And these are the various subjects. You see what subject merits what kind of credit. You decide that way rather than 20 courses in finance and accounts, and all those 20 courses have to be given the same treatment. So that is what needs to be looked at.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Sir, that is okay. One more question just popped up in the chat box. Sir, will libraries play a major role in national education policy? Dr. Swati Varnavas is asking.
If
Role of library.
Swati, if the library thinks that it is heart of educational institution, this policy is incomplete insofar as its implementation is concerned if library does not pitch in with its role and responsibility. To me, the policy implementation will be incomplete, even in those bits and pieces. When we talk about flexibility, if library does not correspond on the same pace with the curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular activities. So library has to understand these changes which your institute puts in place and gear its activities of acquiring resources, processing resources, serving resources accordingly. If you want to take up that role, sky's the limit. Yes, it cannot happen unless library corresponds. That is why, Swati,
Yes,
one
sir.
thing which, if you heard me in the Pune webinar, when I said, even in these pandemic times, when faculty are busy, engaged in teaching courses online, students are busy learning online. What is the library doing? That is where I said you have to look at what are the various digital resources available, which can help my teacher in marketing to know that these are the digital resources available to back up your knowledge. Rather than a publisher has sent you a database, or you forward the database to the user. If that was so, why are you needed? So unless and until you assume your role that I am the interface between my user and these resources, till that time, nothing can happen. So you as a librarian have to understand your role, not just as a provider, but as a partner with your teacher. Hey, what are you teaching? What are you researching on? What is your current project? And then what are the e-resources that are available? And then make sure those resources, those facilities, those services blend in a proper fashion. Then only you will find your relevance. Otherwise,
Yes.
not. Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir. One more question with reference to employment generation because of this policy. So what do you think, what will be the effect of employment generation as far as teachers are concerned? Sir?
As far as teachers are concerned.
Yes, sir. In case of teachers, faculty.
No, first part I had understood. You are talking about how you're taking care of the employment of the people you are passing out from these schools. It is a win-win situation for the students whom you are graduating, because if they are able to pursue their dreams, pursue their passion, they would be better off, because the kind of flexibility this policy has provided for, the kind of interdisciplinary approach the policy has advocated for, the kind of skill sets and competencies this policy is advocating for. Sure, it will for the students, for the people you produce. Similarly, as I said, there is adequate thrust of this policy on grooming, nurturing, developing the faculty. I showed you one slide which is talking about what the policy talks about training faculty.
Okay.
The issue there is, they have said there will be some central mechanism to organize the trainings for faculty. Since education per se is a concurrent list, there may be some kind of impediment to implementation of that. But the policy strongly talks about quality education, content and delivery is incomplete unless we are able to develop quality faculty. And for that, they are talking about adequate arrangement of training, building, grooming them, not only on the subject that they are teaching, but other areas which will make them a complete, integrated, holistic teacher. Right, for instance, they have switched over in this pandemic to online teaching. Very many efforts have been made by these national bodies to train faculty. Even the institutions themselves have made enormous amount of efforts to upskill the faculty to make sure that they deliver rightly in the online environment. They came up with hiccups of all kinds to begin with, but by now, after 3-4 months, I don't see much of the problems being experienced by the faculty. So yes, faculty have to also do everything possible to upskill, update, and update themselves. My submission and my last concluding remark is one strong statement which I liked, and I like that. And I'm also asking you to make a note of that. There is one great author, Peel, and I have made that submission of him. I may not be able to reproduce in the exact words, but the message was very clear, and I have made it my prayer every morning. I recite in my own ways, and I expect and wish that each and every faculty member I see 100 plus, there are 91 plus people attending this meeting to adopt the essence of that message of that Peel. He was writing a book. He has written a book on positive thinking, in which he has said, God, grant me the serenity. Grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. This education policy is all about change. The pandemic is all about change. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change.
Right.
Courage to change the things that I can change. Grant me serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. But grant me the courage to change the things that I can. And also, God, give me the wisdom to understand what I can and what I cannot change. Make it a part of your life.
Right.
While tackling the pandemic issues or while understanding, appreciating, and implementing NEP issues. This is the way that you can be much better, much better off. Okay.
Very right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I think that is all from the question and answer session. There is, sir, as you have rightly said, sir, the beautiful national education policy crafted by the makers, but now it is, as a teaching fraternity, is our responsibility, as you rightly said, about 100 people listening on Zoom and more people join on YouTube channel also.
Mudassar, can I make a request? Though you have muted everybody, you can keep them muted, but they can keep their pictures on. They can
Video.
keep their
You mean video?
pics on so that I can see the
So,
people attending.
There is request
Yes,
for all
great.
the participants.
Yeah, now I'm able to see Swati. Thank you so much, Swati, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you. Yes,
So
put your pics on.
kindly put your videos on, please, all the participants. So it is our responsibility, sir. You rightly said there is very beautiful share by Mirza Ghalib, and he says that मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर मैं अकेला ही चला था जानिबे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए और कारवां बनता गया.
Karwa बढ़ता गया. That's right. That's
That is
right.
what is our responsibility, to take this thing further and make it more success, this national education policy. Sir, thank you very much for your insightful.
देखो, मैं आपकी बात को ही आगे ले जा रहा हूँ. मतलब
Yes,
यही
sir.
है. It is not actually, many of these things in this policy are not rocket science kind of things.
Right, sir.
4 or 5 things we have already put in place, like this flexibility. Our teaching and learning philosophy at our university, teaching and learning mantra at our universities,
Okay.
and that is what is that? Teaching and learning at this university happens at the intersection of design, technology, and management.
Okay.
Now look at interdisciplinariness. Look at the flexibility. It is easy. And our student of management goes through a course on design thinking offered by Institute of Design. He goes a course in data analytics offered by our engineering and computing science technology department. So all of this is possible. Now I told you about this C-learning course, which is on compassion, ethics, mindfulness. This is one course my students undergo. There is a course on India information. People go undergo this course. So it is not rocket science. It is that you have to come out of those, defined and very rigid boundaries. Then only it will happen. Please give it a
Very
try.
right.
That's all I'm suggesting.
Very right, sir. Thank you very much. Swati ma'am, anything else, or should we move forward for the formal vote of thanks? Anything from your side, ma'am?
Swati, I don't know whether I could meet your expectations or you want me to say something more.
No, sir, it was fantastic, sir. This is the third time, sir, I'm listening to you, sir. It's been really a good experience, sir, and very kind of you, sir. Like I'm very excited to have you over here, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Same here, ma'am.
Thank
Talking to so many bright young people, I feel a lot younger by seeing some of the good faces, young faces. I see Renuka ma'am, I see Sanjay, I see Mahesh sir, I see Madhuri ma'am, I see Maya ma'am, Samita ma'am, Preetam Kumar ji, Manisha ma'am, wonderful. Archana has kept her, poster. It's not, she's Suman ma'am, Sagar sir, Siddharth sir, Shailesh sir,
Final.
Sanjay, Vaishali ma'am, Ajit, Prashant. Yeah, I'll come to your place one day and
Sure, sir.
meet all of you.
We would
Let
like
this
to have
pandemic be
interaction.
over. I'll definitely come one day.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. And sir, everything that begins come to an end. Now it is my responsibility to put forward the formal vote of thanks. At the onset only, I would like to thank Almighty for giving us strength for conducting this informative webinar. The words are not enough to thank today's resource person, Professor Roshan Lal Raina sir, Vice Chancellor JK Lakshmipati University, Jaipur. Thank you very much, sir, for your informative and energetic talk, sir, which was quite engaging also. Thanks a lot, sir, and looking forward for more fruitful interaction with you, sir, in future also. Also thanking our director, Dr. M.B. Mehta, sir, for his continuous support and motivation. Also, thanks for our technical support, Mr. Chetan, Softtech Solution Pune. And last but not the least, most important part of this webinar, all the participants, directors, principals of various colleges, HODs, faculty members, librarians, staff, and all the participants who very nicely, enthusiastically, actively listened the session, appreciated it. And now moving on the other side of the table, thanking IMS Learning Center, Dr. Swati Barnabas, ma'am, for organizing this, and IMS IQAC, Dr. Hatim Kaimi, for organizing this beautiful session and giving us the knowledge piece. So formally, the webinar is over here. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much.